The Monday edition, Mr. Irrelevant. I'm Alex Strouf with you. No, I've not been wearing the same sweatshirt for the last 3 episodes. I'm just still on vacation. I'm back with you Wednesday, though, looking forward to returning. But we wrap up our look back at State of the Packers 2025 today with kind of a hodgepodge of different topics that we covered in State of the Packers 2025 with myself, Jason Wilde, and Gabe Neitzel. We're going to start the show today with who is under the most pressure for the Packers offense in 2025. We all have different answers by design, but I think it's an interesting look at how this Packers offense is designed and who is under the most pressure for their success in 2025. We will then look at the state of the head coach and the state of the general manager. Is there any warmth under the seat of Brian Gutekunst or Matt LaFleur as Ed Policy takes over year one for him as the president and CEO of the Packers? And then we will wrap up with final thoughts ahead of the 2025 Packers season, which gets going in just 9 days. Training camp begins on July 23rd. That's next Wednesday. Only 9 days away from Packers season. I can't believe it either, but I'm really looking forward to it. So let's waste no more time. Let's get right into it. Wrapping up our look back at State of the Packers 2025 here on Mr. Irrelevant. Who is under the most pressure on the Packers offense this year, in terms of the Packers offense this year?
Gabe Neitzel, you're the hottest. You go last.
Yeah, I'll go last.
So who's under the most pressure? In terms of players, or can I say Matt LaFleur?
That's going to be my answer.
I think it's Matt LaFleur because
I'll come up with a different one.
He has the pressure of trying to marry a lot of the things that were kind of new to this offense last year that we talked about with the different blocking, running out of shotgun, trying to make that work with some of the play action stuff he wants, plus the growth of the wide receivers. Maybe that's paring down and going, hey, these are the guys that are going to get the most playing time, and then once there's injuries, we'll backfill because we feel good about Wicks or Dobbs or whoever ends up being out there and whoever ends up being those backups. But he's got a lot of pressure to combine what he did before Josh Jacobs, now with Josh Jacobs, to make this offense be able to live up to the full potential that it has.
Jason?
You're having such a great show. Seriously, like if I wasn't one of the founders of this show in existence, I'd be like, I'm going to go see
Baby metal.
Indian rock band that she was telling me about. Since you already took the correct answer, you and I will have to come up with somebody different. I feel good about my choice. I think it's Jordan Love.
Yeah.
No one is debating whether or not he's a good NFL quarterback. But you're getting $55 million a year, which is the cost of doing business. Your contract number and the expenses associated with that go up after this year. It is time to be the guy. And I had a great conversation with Josh Jacobs earlier in the offseason where he talked about how he had that conversation with Jordan Love. Now, I believe Jordan Love is capable of that. He still has to do it, though, right? And we have seen, like we've seen, and look, I could make a list of 12 guys on this team that are players, not Goody, not LaFleur, who, again, because of Ed Policy and not wanting to have lame duck seasons, this is a critical year for them, too. But I would say there's probably a dozen players on this roster that are in really pivotal, fulcrum-type seasons. But I think Jordan Love, it's not a fulcrum-type season for Jordan Love on whether or not he's going to be in the league or whether he's going to be their starting quarterback. It's whether he's going to be the Jordan Love that we all think he's capable of being on an extended basis. I don't think he's going to end up in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. If I am wrong, great. But that is part of the problem when you have Favre. And I was reading something yesterday from Pro Football Journal, which is a bunch of the older guys that were like the writers when I was first starting out, right? Guys that I really respect. They had Aaron Rodgers at 10th on the all-time list of great quarterbacks, and Favre did not make the top 10.
Wow.
So think about how spoiled we are as radio hosts, as a beat writer, as fans. So when I say that Jordan Love, I don't think is going to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer, people take offense to that, and I'm like, okay. I don't know if he'll win an MVP or not. But he's got to play at a closer level toward that top 5 quarterback, MVP candidate type player. So I think, and I think that's one of the reasons why Matt LaFleur has been cautious with what he said, both about this team and about his quarterback, to not put more pressure on him.
Before I give my answer, I just want to say, undeniably, I think those are the top 2 answers. Right? I think Matt LaFleur is under the most pressure to prove he can make this offense win and score points. I think Jordan Love is under a ton of pressure because he's got to be that dude, to your point. I'm going to go a little bit of a different route. I think it's Matthew Golden. Spending a first-round pick on a wide receiver that hopefully finally solves your problem of having a bona fide stud in that room.
he's obviously under a lot of pressure because there's expectations that come along with being the 23rd overall pick in the NFL draft. He's under pressure because fans are longing for a wide receiver one, and I know that's a term Matt LaFleur apparently hates, but it's real.
Yeah, he gave me the vomit line, and then they go out and draft one, and he's really excited about it. So let me know again how much you're vomiting when you hear that term.
When you hear Mark Murphy say, for the first time in 23 years, I don't think he was vomiting on that chilly night in April in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So I think Matthew Golden just has a lot of expectations on him, and I think that puts him under the microscope quite a bit, being the first-round pick and hopefully injecting some new blood into that wide receiver room. So that would be who I'd pick third.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what his I don't want to fast forward to this through the season.
Beautiful mystery.
Because I do love the journey.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm paid to chronicle. But I really want to get to January and say, hey, this is the kind of season Matthew Golden had, because I can see him catching 40 balls because somebody emerges that's more experienced, and I can see him catching 65 balls and us saying, all right, they got their stud.
Yep.
We know now that he's the guy.
This is a bit of revisionist history, but for whatever reason, and maybe this just tells you what my timeline's like on Twitter.
Oh, boy.
There were highlights of the Packers-Cowboys playoff game for 2014 that came across. Devontae Adams had a huge game that game as a rookie. Mm-hmm. He had that game. He had that great game against New England when Bill Belichick basically said, hey, I'm taking away Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb. See if this kid can beat us.
And he did.
And then obviously he had that rough patch before he became the Devontae Adams we knew. But when you go back and now you see that, you go, oh, yeah. There's something there with just the way he moves, the way he had the ball in his hands. That's what I'm hoping to see from Matthew Golden. I'm not going, oh, I think he's going to have 1,300 yards this year. Just a few of those moments you're going, oh, yeah, this guy has what it takes to potentially be special.
Time now to talk a little Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst. Does anybody sense any heat on either of their seats if things go awry this season?
I think you have to feel a little bit. Now, do I think that their heat is hot as the pavement here at Summerfest on a warm day? No, but the fact that Ed Policy has already said he's not going to give those 2 extensions and he doesn't want to do he's not a fan of lame duck seasons.
Right.
I think you have to interpret that as, okay, these 2 have to have a successful season. They have to go out there and prove it. I don't think they have to go out and win a Super Bowl or get to an NFC Championship game. As long as they make the playoffs, I think everything's going to be fine. But
Agreed.
If things go south quickly and somehow they only win, God forbid, 7 games and they miss out on the playoffs and they're below 500, for the first time in the Jordan Love era, yeah, I think that's going to lead to some interesting conversations between Goody, LaFleur, and their new boss.
So let's do a hypothetical. They go 10-7.
Yep.
They're the number 7 seed, and they lose to the 2 seed on the road again. So that would be 3 straight years of being the 7 seed, 2 straight years of not winning a playoff game. They would have won 1 playoff game in the Love era. What happens to their contracts?
I'd say small extensions.
Right, I think they each get a year added on, so they're not in a lame duck year.
Yeah,
okay?
Small, a year, maybe 2.
If they go 8-9, 7-9-1, and miss the playoffs.
I think that's an interesting conversation.
Because then, if you're not a fan of lame duck seasons and you're on the record saying, like, look, that Friday, it was all clandestine. Like we weren't even able to tell you where I was that day because there was the TV folks had a separate thing, and so we didn't. No one could say what I was doing, other than I can't be on Jim, Matt, and Molly that day. But the fact that the storyline that came out of that, for all of us, for Domofsky, for Steidman, for me, for Huber, not for Packers.com though, was that he's not going to sign them to extensions, and he doesn't believe in a lame duck season for a coach and a GM. Now, he said he would. He did not paint himself into a corner and say he would never do that.
Nope.
So I think they make the playoffs, they lose in the first round. If that ends up being what, and look, this season could be a deep playoff run too. I'm not saying it's not, but just for our hypothetical, I think they each get 1 year added onto their deal. That's what they did with Mike McCarthy going into 18.
Right.
When previously he and Ted had gotten long extensions each time. So Mike got 1 more year after that 2017 season when they would have been a playoff team if Rodgers doesn't break his collarbone again. But
they were, 6-2 when he got hurt?
Yeah,
Something like that?
I think they had just
5-2?
I think they were 4-1. I think they had just won that game in Dallas. The one where Devontae Adams comes back to the huddle and says, throw a better ball, let's run that same play. And then they go to Minnesota and lose, but maybe they don't if he's healthy. But my point is that I think you get 1 year added on. If they have a deep playoff run, they both get extensions and everybody's
extensions
happy.
And no issue.
The no playoffs sub, or let's say they go 9-8 and it's not good enough to get into the playoffs, that's a different conversation now because of what the new incoming team president set forth in our sit-down with him in the alumni suite a few Fridays ago.
So I don't think either's job is necessarily in jeopardy.
I don't think either one of them are getting fired after the season.
I would agree. But again...
Unless they go 4-13.
Yeah,
really
it would
bad,
have to.
right?
Yeah, it would have to be 2005 levels of just bottom falling out. But
and that team was completely dysfunctional.
Oh, yeah.
Although they were the best 4-12 team in NFL history, just ask him.
I don't even know if you have to ask him. I think he just might offer up the information. He just might offer it up. But that doesn't mean there's not a little bit of heat there, because obviously there is. In order to secure the future of your job, you got to go out and perform this year if you're Gutekunst. I guess it's more on the floor because Goody's job is more. Not that he's not doing anything during the season, but the bulk of
his job is done. His hands are clean now.
The bulk of his job is done.
Player acquisition is 365 24/7.
Yeah, it is. Sure.
That's what I've been told.
Maybe they'll trade Rasul Douglas at the deadline. Oh, wait, they already did that. That's right. Forgot about that one.
Could have used him.
Yes, right now, in fact.
Yeah, he's still
a free agent, isn't he?
He is still available, yes.
Yeah, but bad
30.
news, yeah.
He's over 30.
I think he's 32 years old. Bad news.
But look, I have faith that these two, again, while I am not a fan of the structure in which they currently operate, it's hard to ignore the success that they've had together. They haven't had that ultimate success.
Well, but
I also don't think that that's reason, because I'm sure there is at least some portion of the fan base that if they win a playoff game in the wild card round and then get close in that divisional round like they did 2 years ago, fire them both, start over.
Right.
That's what bad teams do.
Yep.
That's what the Bears did with Lovie Smith, and they have been literally chasing ever since. I don't want to find myself in that position.
Yep.
I think you can get over the hump with these two, but they, much like a lot of the players we've talked about, have to go out and prove it.
You got to prove it. And like the general manager said after the season ended last year, I think it's time we start competing for championships around here.
He did say that.
And hopefully this is the year in which that occurs. Year 3 with Jordan Love as the starting quarterback. Just kind of final thoughts on the 2025 Green Bay Packers. I feel good, not great about this team. I feel good, not great about the teams that they are playing and the teams on their schedule. I think it's going to be much tougher of a rodeo than it was a year ago. I don't think you're going 11-6 playing the type of football that team played this year. Just given the really good offenses and quarterbacks on your schedule. The NFC North, I think, is winnable for Green Bay this year. Detroit, I still view as the second or third best team in the NFC, if not the entire NFL.
They won 15 games last year.
They sure did. And obviously they're getting a lot of their guys back when they were decimated with injuries.
Something I think people have forgotten, by the way, because everyone's focusing on the fact that they're replacing both their coordinators, is what you just said. I think it's a really good point that Packers fans don't want to think about. Instead, they want to look at, they've lost both their coordinators.
But I think that will affect them.
I agree it will.
And that's why I think the North could be winnable if this team is as good as we think they can be, and that's been the theme of the show today, right? These guys are good. They need to get to the next level.
So I think there's still a little bit of ways away from that because so many of those things that have to fall into place. Yeah. Well, they can win the division if everything falls into place, and very rarely does that turn out to be the case.
You view that as requiring Edgerrin Cooper to be almost all-pro. You view that as Nate Hobbs and Carrington Valentine need to be great in the defensive backfield. You view that as Matthew Golden needs to be the receiver he was drafted to be.
The best teams in this league have stars.
Yep.
And so, again, take what you want out of Pro Football Focus, but I was just kind of
taking... The sheet is back.
I was taking a look at, in the division, top 10 players at their position per PFF.
Okay.
The Lions have the most in the division with 9.
Probably have the most in the league.
The Vikings had 4. The Bears had 2. How many do you think the Packers had? Top 10 at their position per Pro Football Focus a year ago.
2.
I'll go 3.
4.
Okay.
Oh, better than I thought.
Josh Jacobs, Zach Tom, Xavier McKinney, and Edgerrin Cooper.
Those were the 3. I did not have Edgerrin Cooper. Okay, interesting.
They were
I thought
all,
Zach Tom had a bad year. That's why he's competing for his job.
That's why he's competing for his job. But so to that point of, oh man, they got to replace both those coordinators. Yes, but they also have a lot of talent that is going to be able to bridge that gap.
You're right.
Yes, those coaches had a lot to do, and I think Ben Johnson gets a lot of credit for Jared Goff getting to a level he didn't get to and then sustaining that level that he didn't have in Los Angeles. Can he sustain that? I'm not sure. But also, they've got probably the best running back tandem in the league.
Yep.
They have 2 bona fide studs on the outside. They've got a pretty good tight end. They've got a good offensive line. One of the top pass rushers in the league, and a whole bunch of those defenders coming back. So I think that they're going to be, maybe they don't win 15 games again. I think that would be tough for them because much like the Packers, you're not beating up on the AFC South this year. So the schedule's going to be a little more difficult. But they have a lot of studs. They have a lot of stars. And the Packers, again, I listed off 4 of top 10 at their position last year. I would say 2 of those are bona fide stars in this league, and Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney. I'd listen to a case on Zach Tom, and Edgerrin Cooper still has more to prove. Unless more guys step up to be studs, this team is going to be a wild card team that hopefully you get the right matchup in the playoffs.
I think the ceiling is like 13-4. I think the floor is as low as 9-8 for 2025, and it's dependent on everything you just said.
Because, again, they've got good players. Like, I think when we look at the different positions, they've got good players. They've got guys showing that they can be contributors. It's just, okay, you can only go so far with that. You look at the
Correct.
Eagles and how stacked they are. You look at so much credit for the Kansas City Chiefs, understandably so, goes to Patrick Mahomes, but they've got a lot of difference makers. You know, previously on their offensive line, some defensive playmakers that they've had, and the defense has really carried the day for the Chiefs as of late. But you look at those teams that made it to their respective championship games, they've got stars. They've got big-time contributors that are stepping up when it matters the most. And Jordan Love has shown that he can be a big-time contributor. But when it's mattered the most, as Jason pointed out earlier in the show, his last 5 playoff quarters, 5 interceptions.
So you view the record as what, Gabe?
Very similar to last year, I think, which would be an improvement given how tough the schedule this is here. But I look at this as around an 11-win team. That's going to be good enough for a wild card. I don't think they're going to be better than the Lions. I think they're better than the Vikings, who are going to go through some growing pains despite the studs they have on their roster. But J.J. McCarthy and going with him at quarterback.
State of the Packers 2025. That's Gabe Neitzel and Alex Strouf. We've got about 3.5 minutes remaining. Jason Wilde, the floor is yours.
I said last year they could have a better team and not go as far as they did in the playoffs. That turned out to be true. I think this year they could have a better team and have a lesser record. I'm going to pick them to go 10-7. I've been pretty consistent with that because I do think the schedule is harder. I do think that, you know, we are putting a lot of eggs in the Lions lost both their coordinators and Ben Johnson is a brilliant offensive mind basket. Look, the division has all kinds of question marks, right? Are the Lions going to be as good without those 2? Are the Vikings going to be as good with J.J. McCarthy at quarterback? And what exactly are the Bears going to be? The Packers feel like the same team that can still be good, but not great. And so, like you said, I think it comes down to who their playoff matchup would be. They have to stay healthy. If they have the kind of injury problems the San Francisco 49ers or the Detroit Lions had, they are not finding a way. They do not have that kind of depth on their roster. And so then we're looking at a much more disappointing season. I don't expect that. I expect them to go 10-7. I expect them to be a wild card. I wouldn't be surprised if they got the right matchup if they win their first playoff game. But again, I think they're still a year away from us saying that they are truly competing for a championship.
It's a team we will reflect on as the best 10-7 team in NFL history.
If that's what they turn out to be, I see a path for them to be in an NFC championship game and going 13-4. I'm not saying they can't, but again,
a lot has to fall into place.
A lot has to go right.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And,
God, you're good.
And a lot of that, I think, is dictated by 2 people who we talked about a little bit earlier. It's the head coach, it's the quarterback. Can Jordan Love
which is
be
true
that
of
dude?
almost every team in the league.
Well, of
right?
course. I don't think
Even
I don't
on
think
this
this is
team.
groundbreaking analysis.
Right,
but
but what I'm saying is that we tend to maybe overevaluate both those guys sometimes. Those guys both have to be on top of their games this year because they've got a defense that's championship caliber. They have a lot of good, not great weapons. Those are the two guys that can make those good but not great weapons and make Jordan Love even better.
well, think about it, right? You saw it for years and years with Aaron Rodgers, the way he elevated the guys around him.
And Lazard got paid because of Aaron.
Correct. We've seen Jordan Love in moments, at times, in flashes, elevate the guys around him. Mm-hmm. The word we used a ton in this program last year around Jordan Love was consistency. Can he do it consistently? And that will be, again, a question in 2025.
And that will do it for my vacation. That will do it for our look back at State of the Packers 2025. If you missed State of the Offense from last Wednesday's Mr. Relevant or State of the Defense from last Friday's Mr. Relevant, highly recommend looking back at those if you've made it this far into our look back at State of the Packers. Before I go and before I return Wednesday, one final time, got to tell you about our friends at Door County Distillery, locally produced, handcrafted, award-winning spirits made locally in beautiful Door County. If you're heading up there, stop in. If you're not, bring Door County to you with their whiskeys, gins, rums, all the in-betweens. They've got a wide array of liquor, and it is all delicious, and it is all award-winning, and it is all affordable, and it is all local. DoorCountyDistillery.com is their website. I return in 2 days for Wednesday's edition of Mr. Relevant. The whole crew returns Wednesday. Josh DiMaggio will be back with me. Hunter Vaughn, Tiny Hands, will be back with me. Will Summers will be back with us as well for a long overdue Will's couple weeks in review, I guess we'll do on Wednesday, as we are just a week out from training camp. I assume, though, because I'm recording this in the future, that Sal Frelick was named an injury replacement for the All-Star game tomorrow, and he will play. That's my guess. Probably not, but just a guess. All right, we'll talk to you Wednesday. Looking forward to being back with you. Appreciate you hanging with us while we get a little pre-football season vacation in for the four of us. Quick break before we get back to action, just a week out from training camp and the Green Bay Packers 2025 season. But there's going to be Brewers and Bucks to talk about, I'm sure, as well, coming up Wednesday. So that's all still ahead. Looking forward to that. That does it for us. We'll talk to you then. Peace.
Shit.